It's now time to roll up our sleeves and bring you a comprehensive list of all the new info we've gotten on Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, we're likely to go over some things we've already covered in recent videos, so don't get mad at us if you hear something you already know. But hey, who doesn't like a good refresher? So let's dive in. So first off, the timeline. The Andromeda Initiative, that is, the project that will lead on to the main plot of Mass Effect Andromeda, launches in 2185. This is during, or at least close to the events of Mass Effect 2. The importance here is that this ensures the ending of Mass Effect 3, regardless of which one you get, will not be taken into account. So by the way, speaking of the initiative, when you saw the orientation video for the Andromeda Initiative, did anybody recognize the voice of Jin Garson, the founder of the project? That's none other than Jamie Clayton, known for her role as Nomi Marks in the show Sense8. So enjoy that little fact as we move on. As part of the initiative, there are 4 giant ships known as Arks. These transport those involved from the Milky Way to Andromeda. Each Ark houses a different race, and based on other information, we think it's safe to assume those races will be the Asari, Turians, and Silurians, and of course the humans. There is also the Nexus, which is a forward command center housing members of every species on the project. That's where Jin Garson is stationed, while you, the human player character, are on board the Ark Hyperion. Sounds great, but remember, this is an RPG game, so something bad is contractually obligated to happen early on. In this case, the Hyperion arrives at the wrong coordinations and is cut off from the rest of the Arks. Fun times. The Andromeda Initiative itself actually launched in 2176, but before the events of the first Mass Effect game. So this isn't just some spur of the moment thing, it took a lot of time and a lot of generous donors to get this ambitious project off the ground, both figuratively and literally. The goal was to travel to the Andromeda Galaxy and find a new home to colonize. And so, the Helios cluster was found and deemed a worthy candidate. And in this cluster, there are several planets designated as Golden Worlds. This means they are prime candidates for colonization based on their life-sustaining properties, and will be explored by those aboard each Ark in an effort to find their new respective homes. These expeditions are led by individuals known as Pathfinders, a combination of soldiers, scientists, and other such professions, where Pathfinders are in charge of finding the ideal spots on these golden worlds for their respective race to colonize. The human Pathfinder is a man named as Alec Ryder, who will be voiced by Lex Luthor himself, Clancy Brown. At some point early in the story, an event happens that results in the position of the Pathfinder being passed down from Alec to one of his 2 children, and that's where you come in. Playing as either Sarah or Scott Ryder, you, the player, will take on the role of the Pathfinder and lead the colonization efforts in this new galaxy. Don't worry though, those are just default names. You can give them whatever first names you like. Unlike Commander Shepard, your character will be untested and unproven in the field, so don't go expecting some combat genius. Also, while we're assuming this event refers to the Hyperion getting lost, we don't know the specifics as of yet, so don't assume Papa Ryder will be totally down for the count. Anything could happen. However, that's not to say this is a new series revolving around Ryder. BioWare's vision for Mass Effect Andromeda is a complete standalone game with the possibility of continuation. So there is a possibility that Mass Effect may be following the Dragon Age format for a while, where each game relates to the others but is largely its own entity. So anyway, you're Ryder, either of the Sarah or Scott variety, and since this is a BioWare game, you get to customize your new player avatar. The customization options in Andromeda are said to be more extensive than before, and based on what we've seen in Dragon Age Inquisition, that's an exciting prospect. Seriously, check out the Inquisition Sliders subreddit and imagine a system even more in depth than that. Oh yeah, plus as a bonus, New Game will be making a return. You can even change between Scott and Sarah as you start a new game. Isn't technology grand? So briefly speaking of Dragon Age, do you remember Dragon Age 2? Where the appearance of your close relatives would change based on how you designed your player character. Well, that's going to be coming back to Andromeda. How you customize Ryder will affect how your sibling and father will look in game. So with the backstory out of the way, let's move on to gameplay, namely the combat. Mass Effect Andromeda will stick to its third-person shooter roots, while making several strides forward. From small changes, such as individual power cooldowns replacing those pesky global timers in the previous games, to more substantial additions like a dynamic cover system inspired by games like The Last of Us. This means, rather than just hitting a button to snap to cover, you will automatically take cover when you're close enough to anything that can be used as such. This might be a controversial decision to some, but let's just wait until we see it in action before we sling any fire, shall we? The combat will be largely similar to the previous games, with a few tweaks. You can still pause, but only to change equipment and use consumable items. Powers and abilities will each have an assigned button hotkeyed into the game, so you can use them quicker and easier. Plus, you now have a jetpack. We've mentioned that a few times in the past, but now we know that the jetpack can be used to maneuver around the battlefield, as well as hover in place if you're in the mood for a little recon. Classes are now a thing of the past. Your playstyle will be determined by you alone, with different titles like Vanguard or Adept being assigned based on how you choose to develop your character. This progression system will be tied into the story to add a little more immersion. Your armour is also more customizable than before, though to what extent we don't know. We don't mean the Omniblade, we're talking straight up swords and hammers. I guess the Dragon Age inspiration goes deeper than what we thought. But moving on from combat to general gameplay, the object of the game is exploration. We have a new Mako style vehicle called the Nomad. It's quicker and more maneuverable. It has no weapons but is lightly customizable, so look forward to that. Traversing a planet is no longer as simple as going through a map and hitting each point. Now you can go all the way from the surface to the underground areas, providing for many more exploration opportunities. If any of you have played Xenoblade Chronicles X for the Wii U, then you may be familiar with what kind of mechanisms this game has in store. You'll be travelling through large areas, establishing footholds and fast travel points, as well as scanning local flora and possibly fauna, which in turn rewards you with blueprints to craft new equipment. So don't go thinking the collection elements are just for completion's sake. Aside from hazards such as acid pools, burning wrecks and bad weather, you'll be encountering a native race to the Andromeda galaxy fairly often. These folks are known as the Ket, and they're pretty peeved at you being there. BioWare says they are the main enemy, but they were designed to allow for a rather sympathetic view from the player, rather than seeing them as just straight up evil. Show of hands, who here thinks we're going to get a Ket party member at one point? Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising, I guess. But hey, this is a BioWare game. You're here for the characters, and this game has them. Well, 2 for now, aside from the riders and our interpreted boss, Shin Garson. 2 squad mates have been confirmed. First is Liam, a human former police officer with a light attitude. He kinda sounds like this game's version of Jacob, but we can't say anything for sure, since that's all the info we have on him right now. The other is someone you've likely seen plenty of times already, by way of the previous trailers and our videos. Our face-painted Asari friend finally has a name. Well, a nickname. She goes by PB, and she's not particularly serious. She arrived on the Nexus, but quickly went off on her own, and has what is described as a bubbly personality. We imagine a lot of people may either love her or hate her, though that's mostly based on her surface resemblance to Sierra from Dragon Age Inquisition. We'll know more soon, probably. Let's not discount Drac the Krogan as well, who's a likely member who's going to be joining your crew. And we also have the rumoured name of Cora, but we don't know anything about this yet. How you interact with these characters has been deepened as well. BioWare is expanding the relationship system this time around, and this game is going to have more relationships than any other BioWare game. You can even develop the fraternal relationships between your sibling. And don't squeal too loud, but we've heard through the grapevine that loyalty missions are making a comeback, and this time, they're not essential to the game's ending. You can even wait until after you finish the game to do them. Was that a subtle hint at the concept of post-game content? We won't tell, mostly because we don't know. Possibly taking some cues from Dragon Age Inquisition, romance subplots won't all simply end in a sex scene. Some might, but some might not, and some might even go straight there without any build-up. Their aim is to give the player more options, and you as the player appear to have a plethora. In fact, there will be a focus on actual relationship building moments. You know, like the shooting bottles with Garrus scene from Mass Effect 3. Hey, didn't we ask you not to squeal? By the way, we can tell some of you are getting nervous about the prospect of getting attached to a new character only to have them murdered, marooned, defected, or otherwise ripped from you and your exposed soul. Well, don't worry, because BioWare's Mac Walters confirmed in an interview with Game Informer that none of your squadmates will die. This might sound anticlimactic to some people looking for a little more drama, but hey, technically, if a squadmate betrays you and leaves you and you're forced to kill them, they're not technically your squadmate at that point. Are we evil for bringing that up? Nah, we're evil for different reasons though. And then there's your ship. Let's face it, the Normandy was basically its own character, and BioWare is hoping to capture that same magic with your new ship, the Tempest. Functionally, it appears to work the same way, except now the experience looks to be seamless. Walking around your ship with no loading screen sounds awesome, and travelling to a new planet via new and improved a galaxy map. You go straight there, hop into the Nomad, and here we go exploring. We're super excited to check out the Tempest, and we hope you are too. While on the subject of interaction, that system is receiving a big shine this time around as well. What's going is the Paragon Renegade system, but what's coming in is a system around tone, where you choose your answer based on how you want to say something, rather than being hustled into a choice between nice and a jerk. The tones are referenced to head, heart, professional and casual. We assume head means logical, heart means emotional, and casual and professional mean casual and professional. Interrupts will also be making a return, though with less ambiguity. This time around, rather than a simple button prompt, you'll see a small message on the screen such as shoot, which you can choose to activate. As with the dialogue, there's no good or evil this time around. The whole game will have more of a grey aspect, with most choices having good or bad repercussions. You know, just in case you needed a little anxiety. Now, don't worry all you multiplayer fans, we haven't forgotten you. Following the success of Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, BioWare clearly knew they had a winner. So this time around, the mode will be generally the same style, albeit with a few refinements. For instance, you can add modifiers to each round, such as decreased health for your character or increased damage against enemies. These modifiers will affect the rewards you earn, giving you more when using ones like the former and less with the latter. However, if you want a little extra challenge, you can play some custom events put out by BioWare with fixed modifiers. Think of it like the Armax Arsenal Arena from the Citadel DLC, but with multiplayer and more mayhem. In multiplayer, you will be playing as the Apex Force, a military team based on the Nexus. As you've probably guessed based on the backstory there, multiplayer will provide benefits for the single player campaign. But fret not, dear players, BioWare has heard your feedback and the game's ending will be completely unaffected by multiplayer. So finally, it's worth noting that microtransactions will exist, but everything you see in the multiplayer store can be bought with in-game currency, and no real money is required. We've mentioned the ending, and we could hear your uneasiness as we brought it up. Well, little info has been released about the conclusion of Mass Effect Andromeda, for obvious reasons. BioWare mentioned that it is to remain a secret, however, they made it a point to say it will be different from the trilogy. What exactly that means, we don't know, but there's still plenty of info here for us now to rack our brains over while we feverishly speculate. So that is more or less it for now from what we've learned recently. It's a lot to chew on, and we know there's more to come. So let's get some discussions going in that comment section. Meanwhile, if you want to stay up to date on Mass Effect Andromeda, or simply want to learn more about this awesome series, give the subscribe button a good whack, and we'll see you next time here on Mass Effect Follower.